Discussing all tonight's topics with me are my brilliant panel. Joining me tonight, he's got a big brain and he talks like he's on cocaine. It's Andrew Eborn, plus a comedian who hasn't experienced joy in decades. It's Justin Panks.
And finally, some sport for you. Here we go. Let's get this name correct. Barbara Krejcikova, yes, has been crowned Women's Wimbledon champion with a 3-set victory over Jasmine Polini. It's a second Grand Slam title for the Czech player, who's won the French Open in 2021. Both were playing in their first final at Wimbledon, and it's the 7th year in a row there's now been a new women's champion. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis, back with another update at 9 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam, and that was perfect pronunciation. And welcome along to the Saturday Night Showdown. My brilliant panel joining me tonight are broadcaster and lawyer Andrew Eborn and the legendary comedian Justin Panks. Now, the calls for President Biden to step down have grown louder after the president's latest gaffes at a recent NATO summit. Biden referred to Ukraine's President Zelensky as President Putin. Let's take a look.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
That's like shouting out your ex-girlfriend's name during sex with your wife. Worse, it's like shouting out your ex-girlfriend's name during sex when your ex-girlfriend invaded your wife's house and killed lots of people. And if you thought Biden calling President Zelensky Putin was bad, President Biden then referred to Vice President Kamala Harris as Trump. I think we can all agree that Biden's current vice president is not a 6'2" male with blonde hair. This obviously escaped him. Let's take a look.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. So let's start there.
And that wasn't all. In a week when he should have been putting minds at rest, in another slip, Biden enthusiastically said, well, let's just have a listen to it.
I'm going to come to the overflow room.
What did he say there? Can we just listen to that again?
I'm going to come to the overflow room.
I doubt it. I think the most worrying thing about that is he needs an overflow room for that activity. How much volume are we talking about? And Biden suffered a huge blow this week when George Clooney called for him to drop out and top Democrat donors withheld $90 million in campaign funds. Before we talk about that, I just want to discuss those gaffes.
Yes.
This is a week when he really should have been putting people's minds at rest, and instead he's come out and made the most catastrophic gaffes.
You've seen The Producers, the Mel Brooks thing. They make this deliberately. They want to make this musical that's an absolute failure.
Springtime for Hitler. It is that moment.
It's like the Democrats must be. This is what are they doing? Like, what are they doing?
But they must know, because people around him work on that sort of basis. So the pressure was on him because they had the NATO summit.
Yeah.
Everybody was there, and it was the big distraction. It's the only thing they cared about. Yeah. What I've been doing, you remember Liz Truss and the lettuce. I've been doing Joe Biden versus the orange. We're going to see which one runs out of juice first, because the reality is he's not going to survive. They had this thing called Amendment 25 in America, with if the president's unable to do the job, he can be replaced, and the vice president steps in. So that's likely to be discussed in the next few days.
How can they possibly seriously think they're going to get in with him? And I think the problem is now, because everyone's saying he's got to step down, and they've stuck with him. Now if they sort of like give in and bend to people like George Clooney. Now it looks like they're very weak.
Yeah, and also, I mean, in a sort of presidential election, people will feel cheated because they elected Biden as president, and he's the candidate, the Democratic candidate going forward. So if they step in and fiddle things behind the scenes, people
it's a gift for Trump. But the people around Biden know that he's not fit to do it, and this is the problem. And it's not just George Clooney, because also you had Michael Douglas turning around. Everybody's sort of saying, hang on, we're going to withhold funds and things like that. You can't do the job. It's got to be a setup.
Even the pro-Democrat sort of like commentators, are even, so why are they so married to Biden? Because why don't they want to replace him?
Well, they were up until now, and now everybody, even actual Democrat politicians, who are really putting their careers on the line, because if you go against the top dog, now you're going to come after Tony Soprano. You better make sure you.
But Dr. Jill Biden wants to remain first. She wants to keep the job. Is what Trump will say. And you're working on that sort of basis.
Well, there's this whole apparatus apparatus around him that's keeping him in place, but he's just not. He's just
but they must know that they will be gone because the Republicans will get it.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. Now they were looking incompetent and inept. Because now if they sort of like, oh, yeah, we have got to give him... Well, you must have known he was like this before the debate.
And that's the point. People round him, this is when he's in the public eye, he's got whatever the Viagra thing that he has to keep him for speeches.
Sometimes he seems juiced up and sometimes he doesn't.
What he does. He's got debate Viagra getting on there. But people around him must know.
Yeah.
And this is why I think it's a setup. And I think you're turning around on that sort of basis. The people who are going to be the next people who are going to be coming in there to replace him, that's what's happened.
Yeah, well, talking of people who could replace him, because Clooney laid into him this week for a change. He's been very supportive of Biden so far, but he revealed that he was at a fundraiser with Biden and Biden was suffering noticeable cognitive decline.
Yes.
Now, with Democrats now admitting that Biden is suffering from cognitive decline, where does this leave fact checkers? Now, fact checkers, who we're supposed to trust implicitly, have been insisting that Biden is perfectly fit. And any mention by Trump or GB News or commentators of cognitive decline in Biden is just typical far-right fake news. Politifact drew on medical experts to condemn the claim that Biden is senile, saying that his halting speech and facial expressions are due to a childhood speech impediment.
Yes.
And any accusation of senility is just ageism. ABC News said that claims that Biden had wandered off at the G7 summit. I don't know why we're showing that, because that is unrelated to what I'm talking about.
That's why. It's a Biden.
You're senile, Leo.
He's lost it.
What I was saying. It said that claims that Biden had wandered off at the G7 summit and had to be ushered back to the group were misleading because he'd seen a parachuter out of frame. Although Biden had still wandered off and had still had to be ushered back. The independent fact-checker said there's virtually no evidence that Biden is in cognitive decline and a lot of evidence that he remains fully able to do his job. It's Trump who regularly dabbles in reality-detached and irresponsible nonsense. And remember, when Biden froze at a fundraiser? Well, the Metro fact-checked it and said that he didn't, telling the readers that he tried to listen and did not freeze up. He seemed ready to respond. Incorrect news is spreading. Now, that fact check is now shot down in tatters as George Clooney was at that actual fundraiser and has dropped this devastating bombshell. George Clooney said, "The one battle Biden cannot win is the fight against time. None of us can." It's devastating to say it, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. Now, that seems pretty damning of fact-checkers.
Well, there's a couple of things on fact-checkers. First of all, they've got into this legal definition of what it means to be senile. And they're saying you have to be a dribbling mess in the corner all of the time, effectively, is what they're saying.
Which is what Biden is.
Well, they're saying he's not all of the time. It's only on Thursday. So they're working on that sort of basis. But also, the thing about the videos, because sometimes they have done some fake ones, the cheap fakes, as opposed to the deep fakes, where they edit the videos to make him look silly.
That's what people said about that fundraiser. They said, oh, it's been deceptively edited. But I watched the full thing.
So did I. Go on, then.
It was completely not. I mean, all right, they truncated it, but they edited it.
Oh, no, the bit they truncated. When he had the debate, and when he was at the fundraiser, he was quite lucid during the thing. But the 7 seconds they keep showing of him freezing, the sort of Michael Jackson for dramatic purposes, before that, he was waving to the crowd and doing the other bits and pieces. So, to be fair on that one, that was edited in a way to make him look bad. There was also the one when he pushed aside.
Clooney has just admitted that he was displaying cognitive decline at the fundraiser.
And that medical expert, Clooney, absolutely.
He played a doctor.
I get it. He's right.
But it's all semantics, because what does it matter if it's technically senile or if it's whatever it is? He's not the full ticket. He's gone downhill. I mean, people did it about Reagan, but I remember people said it about Reagan. I remember when I was a kid, he was this doddery. I watched on YouTube his final speech before he left office. He was nowhere near as bad as Biden. And Reagan was like the gold standard for sort of like getting doddery.
And you're talking about 4 or 5 years' time. What's he going to be like then? So if he's standing, it's complete nonsense. He will go. He will not stand.
Would you let him drive?
Would
Would you let him drive?
Would I let him drive to Tesco to get...
No, you wouldn't.
No way.
Whether it's technically senility or whatever, it's Alzheimer's, whatever it is, you wouldn't let him drive.
And people who are told to stop driving, they realise it's the end of their independence, and so I get the fact he's resisting it.
Yeah, you're the last one to know.
And this is an important thing, because sometimes people say, oh, why are you being mean about Joe Biden? He's old, we all get old. It's like, we all get old. We all don't demand, we don't see ourselves as having a right to have the most important job in the world, President of the United States, finger on the nuclear button.
I actually feel bad for him. I see him on this biggest stage, leader of the free world, and you see him on that debate, and it's cruel. It's painful to watch.
But
I wish him no ill.
But he did solve, in that one sentence, he solved the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Because he did say, the president of Ukraine, Putin.
Can I say?
And then you come, that was the end of it. So you work on that basis.
That's playing into what Putin wants.
He totally wants
himself as the president.
He's
got his shirt off and he's wrestling bears and everything. And Joe Biden's just sitting there with his mouth open catching flies.
I know.
It's like, what you...
Oh, the debate...
He can't even walk.
The debate was ridiculous, wasn't it? But Trump is being deliberately silent, and he's being held back to the extent you can hold Trump back.
He'd just be a bully. He can't.
So what happens? But he does that funny little look that he did.
That smile like that.
That smile, that's what I see what he did there.
Trump wants Biden in place.
Of course he does.
To run against Biden.
Of course.
Kamala Harris.
But
that's even worse.
So those who've got the theory, they're sort of turning around, they wanted the debate early so people would realise that Biden effectively steps down, because if it was too late for people to change, then it was a clear victory for Trump. If they can change him beforehand, they might get somebody in there.
I think it's too late for them now, because everyone's like, the cat's out of the bag, you've lied, this fact checker stuff. You knew what he was like, you put him in the debate, whatever injections you're giving him didn't work that night or whatever. And now if you move him now, it's like, well, the cat's out of the bag. You had this infirm man.
Yeah.
And now you sort of, if you change now, we've all seen it. It's not a choice now. It's like they're forced.
But what if they replace him with George Clooney?
Hey.
George Clooney is possibly lining up a run for president. I mean, he's an actor, so he's good at putting on clothes that have been picked out for him and reading words other people have written, which is basically all politics is these days. I mean, do you think...
Totally that.
Do you think Clooney would win?
He'll be a brilliant...
Wouldn't his wife, it'd be his wife that was doing it, and he'd just be... Because isn't she like some high up... Yeah, she's like a lawyer or something.
Human rights lawyer.
She's a human rights lawyer, and interestingly, Clooney fell out with Biden over this because she was criticised, I believe, she wanted to bring charges against...
Absolutely, all that sort of stuff. So you're right, there is that sort of side. What's interesting is they've started to use this political... When stars are turning around and saying, look, you've lost it now, because people always want those sort of endorsements. I think Clooney will run. I also think, and I said this beforehand...
You think he will run?
Maybe not this time round. I think
he doesn't want the aggravation. He just wants to enjoy...
No, but everybody says, oh, I couldn't possibly do it. I couldn't possibly do it.
It's Nespresso money.
That's a big money, isn't it?
And keep him up all night. He doesn't have to have the injections. It's got to be good. But you're working on that basis, so it's going to be interesting.
Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. Kearse Blessed is coming up, but first I promised I would show you what happened to this old lady and young boy. Actual footage there of Emmanuel Macron meeting his wife. What do you mean? Husband.
I don't know. It's self-defence.
It's outrageous. Before the watershed as well. I think you're working on that sort of basis. But yes, I love it.
I mean, it depends what you think is the lesser evil. I mean, is it elder abuse or child abuse? Because she was, I don't know.
Yeah,
she was going to. Yeah.
You also have to ask yourself the question why people film these things, because they obviously set these up ready to win. The 250 quid from Jeremy Beadle it used to be, didn't it?
Yeah.
But you work on that sort of... We'll show it on Leo's show. We'll get Leo's show this time.
Leo Kearse, you do not get 250 quid. Anyway, it's now time to go through the winners and losers of the week. First up, the SNP, who are sending asylum seekers in Scotland on training to teach them how to detect racist microaggressions against them. That's right, the SNP are worried that asylum seekers, who they've rebranded New Scots, won't know when someone's being racist to them, so are spending taxpayers' money on courses tailored to help them understand racism in Scotland and anti-racist approaches. I mean, imagine a crime that is so minimal, you have to be taught that you're a victim of it. According to the Scottish Government, microaggressions are examples of indirect or intentional discrimination or unintentional discrimination, often verbal, directed at minority groups. Common examples include complimenting a person of colour on their intelligence, or a white person making a statement such as, I believe the most qualified person should get the job. That's right. Telling someone they're smart or picking the right person for a job is a racist hate crime now in Scotland. I guess it explains why their leaders have been so useless. Now, guys, they're training people to feel aggrieved. I mean, this feels like there wasn't a problem, but they're trying to make a problem.
It's like COVID, that the symptoms are now so mild, they have to tell you you've got it. Well, have I? But I think this is a thing of, be serious, I think there's a thing where they want to keep the West feelings, guilt and shame all the time. Instead of congratulating ourselves and going, we're actually very tolerant. There aren't right-wing gangs roaming the streets like Clockwork Orange attacking immigrants. Actually, they're fine. And they're saying that they're not, obviously not reporting enough hate crimes. They've now got to drop the bar. Because I think if you feel shame and guilt, then you're easy to push around and have your rights taken away.
And you're absolutely right. And the trouble is that, isn't it? If you try and find offence, you will find it. And the more you define it and tweak it and say, look, you're so clever. Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean that. Or open a door for somebody, how offensive is that? Or all the common courtesies we used to have. Well, We've lost all that sort of stuff, haven't we?
Microaggressions are so ridiculous. I mean, some of to be happening in Scotland, where a bigger problem is macroaggression. You know? I mean, if microaggressions are bad, go to Dundee and see a full-size aggression. There
you go.
Microaggressions, apparently, if you make too much eye contact with a woman, that can be seen as sexual harassment. And if you make insufficient eye contact with somebody that's a different ethnicity to you, that can be seen as racism. So to make sure you don't commit a microaggression, you've got to stand with your eyes swivelling in different directions all the time. It's
crazy. And Macron aggression, obviously, against the French as well. So you work on that sort of basis. No, it's rubbish, absolute rubbish, and we should call it out.
And the irony is they're now bringing in people of other cultures that don't see these microaggressions. They don't see there's a problem. So we're now giving them problems.
We're teaching them.
Teach them to be miserable and feel like a victim. Oh, you're not enough of a victim. You don't realise how much of a victim you are. Come here, come be a victim.
But you have to ask, don't you, how they come up with this list. They must consult people, and they probably get paid thousands to come up with the list.
It just doesn't. Special advice.
And they turn around and say, "You're your best person for that." Oh, can't say that.
I honestly think obviously Scotland are too tolerant. They thought the narrative it's like these Elgin marbles. They've been talking about for 30 years. Just send them back. The whole thing seems to be they want that conversation always is. So, we're awful. We're colonisers. We pillage everywhere. Just send them back. No many nerds go to museums anyway.
But we like to complain. We don't like solutions. People are so good at finding problems, and if there isn't a problem there, we have to find one.
But it's always blaming us. Same with the climate thing. It's like that's why they can do things like you, Les, for your own good because you're evil. It's us. I'm destroying the planet. I don't know if we are, and I don't know if there's no racism. We have to always be made to feel like villains.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think the Scottish hate crime law that came through? It was widely lampooned, and also it hasn't. Not many people have actually been successfully. I think the things at the bar so low you wouldn't even report some of the things that they would say are hate crimes. So
the person who wins the prize for that is J.K. Rowling for making sure early on she went out there and said, "I'm going to say all these things. Come and arrest me." And that resulted in that because when the police first started with that, they said we're going to investigate every single complaint. Not if your bike gets nicked or somebody robs you in the street, but every single complaint on the hate crime thing. That's what they would do. And J.K., to her credit, came out and made sure that didn't happen.
Absolutely, yes. She pretty much brought it down single-handedly. Now, Mick Jagger has stirred up an old sex scandal rumour about Justin Trudeau's mother during a Rolling Stones concert in Vancouver. There have long been rumours that Margaret Trudeau was a groupie for the Rolling Stones, and this week the Stones were performing in Vancouver when Mick Jagger dropped a hint on stage saying, "We love you, Mr. Trudeau." I suppose I should attempt his accent. "We love you, Mr. Trudeau."
Ow. Who was that? Who's that? Is that Trudeau?
His family is always such big fans of our band.
Microaggression against the English. That's very anti-English.
That's back row, that is. That's big stuff.
Basically he said, Mick Jagger was booed for saying "we love you, Mr. Trudeau," but he was just setting up his bombshell. There was a big hint that Margaret Trudeau was a big fan of the band. Wink, wink. Now, Mr. Trudeau, whose poll ratings are at an all-time low as Canadians tire of his autocratic, far-left, open borders regime. But this sparked more rumours about the Canadian politician's mother after former President Donald Trump allegedly accused Margaret Trudeau of sleeping with all the Rolling Stones. Obviously, this is a far-right conspiracy theory, which means it's definitely not true. Well, not true this week anyway. Check back next week and it might have come true. It's not the only rumour surrounding Mrs. Trudeau. She was close to Fidel Castro, and it's been alleged by some that Justin Trudeau could even be Castro's son, which makes sense when you see how similar their features are, and even more sense when you see how similar their politics are. Although it's obviously, we're just having a joke here. 3 comedians.
Hi.
And,
Hey, oh.
The Rolling
suggesting that it's
the Rolling
genuinely true.
If only you had a picture of the two of them together. People should search that out on the internet, because the physical features, it's got credibility, you know. If you have a look at this sort of stuff, there's certainly evidence to that effect.
But she's been with the Rolling Stones and Castro. She's like the Forrest Gump of slappers. She's been everywhere. She's been every time there's a historical
I'm
thing.
going to apologise.
You can't say that.
Apologise for the word. That word. You can't use.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Pre-watershed.
You can't use forest as a word. It's not
Forrest
really
Gump.
There's so many words.
Is it?
That,
what are they?
That we.
I went through my whole Rolodex, and that was about my 5th choice. I was like, I'll get away with that. Sorry.
We've got to wait until after the watershed to say some of these words. No, I've been caught out a couple of times, but yeah, we apologise for anybody offended by that word. Now, Castro was a notorious womaniser, and Trudeau is hugely unpopular. I mean,
yes.
Castro, there are those photos of Margaret Trudeau, who apparently went on holiday with the families went on holiday together. I don't know where they stayed, probably the Dominican Republic.
Looking for satisfaction, and they worked on that. I've seen the pictures with them, with the Stones and that sort of stuff. Seen the other pictures. They're all out there on the internet. People can Google and search and do appropriate...
After the show.
After the show. No, in the break or whatever.
Which Stone was it?
No, all of them. It was one night. It was absolutely one night, bit of brown sugar, and they worked on that sort of basis. It was fantastic. It
wasn't any of them. It's a far-right conspiracy.
Oh, is it?
Is that what they said?
Well, is Mick Jagger far-right then? Because he started the conspiracy.
Yeah, well, I think, he's somebody well-placed to know.
Yeah, you think he'd know.
You would think... he may not remember, though.
I reckon it was Charlie Watts, because now he's dead. It's like it's fair game.
I don't think it was any of them.
I think you're right. I think we need to... They're not here to defend themselves until a bit later. It was Donald Trump who said it anyway, so it must be true.
Yeah, it's a far-right conspiracy theory, and Mick Jagger doesn't remember anything from the 70s. Anyway, do Scots support England in the football? The front page of The National, which is one of Scotland's biggest newspapers, which sells as many as 12 copies a week, has led with this front page. It says, "Time for revenge." And it's got a picture of a Spanish player kicking a football, which is actually a fat England fan. And this front page reels off a list of reasons for Spaniards to hate the English. They say, every summer they fill up your beaches, they drink all your beer, they mess up your plazas, they eat fried breakfasts all day instead of your wonderful food, they retire in your towns and sponge off your public services.
There you go.
Is what it said. Now, settle in your town, sponge off your public services. This sounds suspiciously like anti-immigration rhetoric. I guess this is a reminder that the Scottish National Party and the British National Party are two cheeks of the same nationalist bum-bum. Now, when I was a kid...
You say that?
Yeah,
bum-gum, you can say.
The word I wanted to use, I couldn't say.
You couldn't say that one.
This is where you're learning.
OK.
When I was a kid, the sort of anti-English...
Yes.
It was a joke, it was a bit of banter. I used to come down to England, see my English friends, and we'd joke about it. And, like Andy Murray wearing the Paraguay shirt when they were playing England. It was fun. Now it feels...
That's crossed over from sport to... that felt more cultural, didn't it?
But what would happen the other way round if Scotland had got there? Would we be supporting Scotland, do you think?
No.
And we also work on the basis, because obviously GB News goes around the world, so we have lots of brilliant viewers in Spain who'll be watching this as well. So football will come home, rather like Biden's going to an older people's home. You're going to work on that sort of basis, and I think that's interesting, because you need to make sure you support everybody. But it is interesting that sort of underlying prejudice against it comes out on that sort of basis.
I feel that crossed over into cultural stuff. Like, I live in Norwich, and I don't care about football, but there's a rival of Ipswich, and obviously you don't want Ipswich to do well, and they don't want Norwich to win football. But if I was actually horrible to someone because they're from Ipswich, and I feel like that's crossed. And also, they're describing the tourist trade.
Yeah,
that's literally.
They're saying they drink all your beer.
We sell it to them. They don't come and steal it.
But you also have to work out it's the publication they're talking about. With their 12 viewers, and I think that's you've doubled them tonight. And the reality is, there's only them saying that, and never let the truth stand in the way of a good story.
Yeah.
That, if you want to draw a crowd, start a fight. You work on that sort of basis, and I'm sure most people in Scotland will be rooting for England tomorrow.
Man, you have made Scotland. But do you think we should have a British football team?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Instead of having the Welsh, the Northern
Well, we
Irish.
do. Team GB, when you play in certain championships, do that sort of stuff. We have a Team GB, and we unite on that sort of stuff. Yeah, but if you go to the Olympics or something like that, we always have a Team GB.
You could go on tour, like the rugby union have the Lions.
Yeah.
British and Irish Lions,
Why do we do it with football?
Well, because they hate each other. You can't even have the fans together. Like, if you go to watch a rugby match, you'll
But all football teams is that this is the farce about football, because you watch all the people, but there's your teammate, you're playing them in this Euros.
Scottish person.
So you work on that sort of basis. It's true, you know.
You'd never cheer on an England player in a... you know, you just wouldn't.
Well, we'll see. 12th of July, Orange March, but it was in Benidorm, where you can get your skin nice and orange.
Hey, like Trump. There you go. It's the Trump supporters, how they all come. It's got to be good, working on that basis.
Yeah, well, now, moving on with Culture Corner, My Lady Jane, a new Amazon TV show based on the young adult novels of the same name, imagines a world where the real-life Queen Lady Jane Grey lasted more than 9 days on the throne. She was one of Henry VIII's 6 wives, and one of the main characters in this show is a gay, black, disabled English king. I think I just won woke bingo.
Hey!
I should point out that unlike the children's book, Brilliant Black British History, this series isn't claiming to be serious, but it does play into a repeating theme that even in medieval times, Britain was a multicultural, diverse country with mass immigration, which is just, frankly, historical nonsense. Britain wasn't on a major trade route, and long-distance mass travel just didn't exist. So there were no more than a few hundred black people living in Tudor England. Some people say it's fair to have so much representation in shows like this because there just aren't opportunities for black actors to play historical European figures. But they get plenty of opportunities in everything else. Just wait for an ad break. Now, Doctor Who had a black Sir Isaac Newton. We've also seen a black Anne Boleyn. Why did he do it to us? Well, it's rewriting history. It's almost like in 1984, how how the party was constantly removing people from photos and putting new people in.
It's absolute nonsense.
It's to sort of force history to conform to modern cultural trends.
Well, it's not history, it's his story, isn't it? And you're sort of turning around and rewriting it to deal with this woke agenda. But it's nonsense, because people then turn around and think that this fiction is fact. Yeah. And that's not a service to anybody.
Yeah, so half the people are fooled by it, think that, this is what Britain was like back then, and the other half of people feel aggrieved that they're being misrepresented and lied to.
But it's equally offensive. If you had Martin Luther King as a white man, for example, you worked on that sort of basis, it would be wrong. And I think teaching people about what are the terrible things, history's not pretty. Yeah. And so to pretend it was pretty is wrong. Yeah. So you need to turn around and make that make sense.
Which is at odds with, you look at the history of the West and whatever, and the thing is important, you were saying, black history, to remember what was done. And it's kind of like... it's raising it. It's and it's. I think when they do it with I don't really care when they do it with, fictional characters. When they do it with historical figures, it's just weird. Yeah. And I think it is, again, I think they're light in the touch paper for some reason. They know it's going to be controversial. Yeah. I mean,
it feels like a racially divisive thing to do. It's not bringing people together or commonalities or anything. It's actually building resentment.
No, of course it is. And people are going to turn around and say, well, it's a lie. So if you're going to turn around on that sort of basis, history, as I say, is ugly. If you look back long enough, everywhere is going to be all that sort of stuff.
Supermodels.
They're even uglier. You should see the early ones, because in the older days...
it's the ones now.
No,
oh my God,
they're androgynous, aren't they?
And they're big land whales as well. Oh my God. Honestly, the way the world is now, if you get called stunning and beautiful in The Guardian, you know you're horrifically ugly.
But in certain cultures, to be enormous, for example, is a sign of beauty, because you're well-fed. And exactly. And if you go back far enough in history, that's what they like. They like the plumper person, because it meant they were well-fed and healthy and that sort of stuff. So beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It does change on that sort of basis as well.
People always say that back then it was a sign of affluence or whatever, but you're talking like... you probably look normal by today's standards, rather than emaciated. I don't think there was like 350-pound people, do you know what I mean? They're probably like just normal now.
If you go back to the circus 100 years ago and get the fat man and stick him in a shopping mall now, he'd
be a personal trainer.
Fattest people in there.
No, it's all...
I love we just said it as micro and macro aggression all in one sentence. It's just brilliant. I love
Microchips.
Thank you.
If they come after us.
Very good.
If they come after us, we can just walk slowly up a hill, and they'll give up after a few steps. Yeah, go and get some.
Just move.
Well, that's the lie about Biden running. I bet he hasn't run forever. Working on that basis, it's got to be true.
Now, moving on, a bookseller has been fired by Waterstones for getting involved in the gender wars. Tilly Fitzgerald, who posts on social media as Tilly Loves Books, posted on Twitter, "Ooh, I'll enjoy tearing up your books and popping them in the bin today. Thanks for the heads up," about a gender-critical author, Christina Dalcher. This came after Christina made comments supportive of women's rights and was concerned about the impact of gender ideology, which allows men into women's changing rooms and sports if they pretend they're a woman. Waterstones sacked Tilly for breaking their social media policy and presumably for threatening to tear up books, which isn't the best look for a bookseller. Now, I mean, what do you make of this? Do you think they're fair to sack her?
Actually, and this would be controversial, because if her employment laws say you're not going to come in here and rip up the books, then that probably makes absolute sense, and it would be within her contract not to do certain things on social media. So I get it from the boring legal answer. Better still, though, and this is the great thing, it's the old Colonel Parker routine, when he would sell buttons saying I love Elvis, and it equals sell buttons saying I hate Elvis, because he made money off both of them. If she bought the books and then ripped them up, that would be a different thing, because that would help Waterstones. But from a contractual law point of view, they're probably entitled to do it.
No, go on.
I was going to say, you know that it's only one-sided. If it was someone a book on the others, this is the thing. What I think, like you're saying, if it's in the law that your employment agreement, you won't sort of like have a go at the products or whatever. But it's always one side, isn't it? It's never even-handed.
But I feel like up until now, it's been quite one-sided against the...
That's what I mean. So now they've corrected... Sorry, that's the point.
So they're overcorrect?
Now they've corrected... Well, they have, but now they've corrected it back again. Yeah. And again, it's just like... You're just watching that sort of theatre pantomime all the time, isn't it?
No, it's not. Where's your career? Behind you.
Yeah, I know.
But that's the problem, though, isn't it? And I think the way it's been reported, it's a very valid point. People should be able to have freedom of speech, but it's not freedom from consequences. And in a certain employment law situation, which is what this is, that's the difficulty. Waterstones ripping up books and binning them is not a good look.
I think Tilly could be an echo chamber where she doesn't realise that, telling an author that she hates her work and wants to rip up her books that is a bad thing to say when you're,
that's what I mean.
when you're a bookseller. So she's surrounded by people who would applaud her.
I get that. And as I say, had it not been for her particular job for Waterstones, encouraging them to rubbish the product, as you say, that's the difficulty. So absolutely, she's entitled to her views, as other people are entitled to the other thing. When it comes to employment law, it's a different matter.
Yeah. Well, Elon Musk has made the shocking claim that the European Union offered him a secret deal to censor Twitter, or X, or whatever it's called, in order to avoid millions of pounds worth of fines. He also says the European Union is secretly colluding with big tech firms to censor the internet. Elon tweeted on Twitter, or X'd on X, or whatever you want to say, the European Commission offered X an illegal secret deal. If we quietly censor speech without telling anyone, they would not fine us. The other platforms accepted that deal. X did not. Now, this comes after Twitter, or X, man, why did he change the name, was accused by the European Union of breaching its rules. They say that blue tick accounts have the potential to deceive users, as they're paid for and don't actually denote that a person is validated or verified. Although everyone on Twitter, or X, or whatever, knows how this works, so I don't see what the problem is myself. But this could lead to X being fined up to 6% of its global annual turnover. That's millions and millions and millions of pounds, and being forced to change how it operates in Europe. Now, we've seen Elon Musk go head-to-head with governments, with agencies over issues around freedom of speech and how his businesses operate. I mean, do you think Elon is in the right here?
He's certainly in the right to call it out, but actually that's not what happened, and they denied. What they normally try and do is, if there's a penalty, you try and reach some sort of settlement. Yeah. And that's what they're really talking about. That's the other side of this particular argument. They normally come to some sort of arrangement and say, look, do this. The whole thing about the blue tick is beforehand they were verified people. They had to make sure you were a person in the public eye or whatever it is, and they were trusted sources.
They tended to verify, before Elon Musk took over, they tended to just verify people on the left. Like, if you're a terrible left-wing comedian, you could get verified. If you're me, sitting there, one of the...
Did you not get verified?
I didn't get verified.
He's a terrible right-wing one. I'm not terrible. You're very good. Well, you set it up, though. You set it up. But you're...
as soon as I literally saw myself from space constructing that tiger pit for myself.
There you go. There you go. You're right. But that's the thing. That was their complaint about. Now anybody can buy it for how much they want to buy it for, and that's their complaint. What they normally do in this situation, they come and reach a settlement. That's what they're talking about. Elon was turning around and saying, well, the settlement was this, and worked on the basis. But 6% of the turnover, when they go into billions, is absolutely horrendous
turnover,
potential.
Not profit.
Exactly.
I mean, are you worried Elon spoke there about him secretly being offered a deal to censor the internet, and then they'd leave him alone? I mean, I'm worried that our agencies and governments are censoring things behind the scenes.
That's the worry, how surreptitious and underhand it is. And so obviously I don't think he cares about making money from ecstasy. I've seen him say, I don't care about money. I mean, that's what he says.
Well, 44 billion is obvious.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he makes his money in other avenues. But, I mean, it just shows everything that you look at, you think nothing is what you... It looks like a platform. And I don't understand, you know, like, is it his responsibility? If he just put a platform up, if I went on Twitter, or X as it's called, and said something, who's liable, me or him? Because, you know, Assange got done for what was on WikiLeaks, but it's like, if you put something on Facebook, it's not Zuckerberg. So it's like, where is his responsibility?
Well, I can tell you, as a lawyer, I'll tell you, it's like defamation. If you're the publisher, you get that as well as the person doing the other bits.
But you're self-publishing, aren't you?
But it's both. It's also the platform has got certain liabilities. And Assange was crazy, just as an aside, to accept that plea deal, because that set back journalism forever.
Oh, really?
Absolutely, because he turned around and pled guilty to one of the charges and basically did the plea deal on that sort of basis. That is completely wrong. He was just the publisher and not the person who did that sort of side.
Saying, yeah.
And it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
He just wanted to go for a picnic, though.
Yeah, I think,
But he
I think his cell was getting tight.
Trump had said he would seriously consider letting him off. He should have waited until after the election.
OK, well, next on the Saturday Night Showdown, Ed Miliband is being annoying. No check there. And is humanity beyond saving? If you're on TikTok, the answer is probably yes. Plus, I'll show you what happened next when this lad tried out some kung fu. Welcome back to the Saturday Night Showdown. Clown World is coming up, but first I promised I would show you what happened when this lad tried out some kung fu. Let's take a look.
You okay?
Oh my God.
Listen, this
That
is
was no
awful
accident. They had an argument.
Tonight is just about abuse, isn't it? There's an elderly woman who had been kicked by a little kid before. That was not good.
I feel like I'm accessory to a crime here.
I think she's going to be talking like Joe Biden after that.
She was fine, apparently.
Good.
By the way, although in the clip earlier, the old lady and the boy both died. No, they didn't. That was a little joke. Anyway, now Labour are back in government, and some socialists have been saying they're happy the adults are back in the room, especially this one. Let's have a look.
Friend is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. So here I am on the latest...
Brilliant.
Yes, it's Ed Miliband, who's wasted no time destroying Britain's energy industry. According to the Daily Telegraph, he overruled his own officials to implement an immediate ban on new North Sea oil. According to Labour, it's more environmentally friendly to import our oil from the Middle East on big tankers that can crash and spill oil everywhere than it is to get it from our own backyard. Labour are also set to approve new green energy schemes and dish out millions of pounds of subsidies for green energy. It's worth noting that Labour received £5 million in donations from green energy tycoon Dale Vince, although of course there's no suggestion that this money bought in favour with the government or that the government is helping him by shutting down competitors in the energy market like the North Sea oil and gas. Miliband's department hit back at the claims in the Telegraph, saying this piece is a complete fabrication, although they went on to say, we will not issue new licences to explore new fields. So it kind of sounds like the piece was right then. Now, I don't think the Scottish oil industry can be replaced with the Scottish solar industry. Do we? Do we need to see more economic realism from David Miliband?
No more music.
David and Ed, I don't know, but he did that deliberately so people would play it, and people wanted it to be bad, and they use social media in that way. So we're the Muppets in this, because we've played it.
So you're saying Ed Miliband is the family of politics?
I think this is what's going to happen. They know how to manipulate the media. They know it looks ridiculous, which is why he comes out on that sort of basis, and he's out there. And Just Stop Oil have won, haven't they? You're working on this sort of basis. So all that stuff and all the stuff that we've complained about, they've now won.
But I think some of the idealism that's present in our politicians and NGOs that sort of drive the agenda is a bit misplaced, because we've seen that electric cars are now falling out of favour with people, particularly as they're now no longer you no longer get brakes.
Yeah.
Now Sadiq Khan is going to charge electric cars for the congestion zone.
Yeah, of course he is. They always do that, don't they? They always go, there's all these incentives to switch over to this, and then I remember when diesel was so much cheaper than petrol. Yeah. So everyone switched to diesel cars, and they're like, now we're going to make diesel more money than petrol.
Oh, absolutely. Give it away first. That's what we need to give away the hardware and make it on software.
To my brilliant panel tonight, that's all we've got time for. Unfortunately, we've had broadcaster and lawyer Andrew Eborn and comedian Justin Panks, and we'll see you again next week. And don't forget headliners as well. It's tonight at 11 p.m. That is 3 comedians going through tomorrow's newspapers. It's fantastic. See you next week. Bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.